It had been a long shift at work, and as usual, I was running on little sleep. I work at a small 24-hour convenience store on the outskirts of town. Nothing fancy, just long hours behind the counter with the occasional customer and an almost constant hum of neon lights. It was the kind of place where nothing ever really happened. That was until that night. It was 2:30 a.m. when I finished cleaning up and locked the store's doors behind me. The silence of the night was always eerie after hours, but tonight it felt different. There were no cars driving by, no distant sounds of people talking, just an unsettling stillness in the air. I stepped out onto the pavement, feeling a chill bite at my skin. My car was parked about 30 feet away, near the corner of the lot, and I noticed something strange as I walked toward it. A man standing by the dumpster at the far end of the parking lot. At first, I thought he was just another homeless person, maybe looking for food or shelter. But as I approached my car, I realized something felt off. He wasn't moving, not even a twitch. It was like he was frozen in place, staring into the dark, unmoving. The streetlights barely illuminated his form, making him appear like a shadow. I quickly got into my car, locking the doors as I started the engine. My hands were shaking. Was I being paranoid? Maybe. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. I drove away, taking the long route home to avoid the empty streets that seemed to stretch forever. The man was still there, in my rearview mirror. I thought I saw his head turn, but I couldn't be sure. My heartbeat quickened as I tried to shake the image from my mind. When I finally got home, I quickly parked my car and made my way inside, locking the door behind me. I didn't know why, but I felt the need to check the locks twice. I tried to brush it off as a result of my tiring shift, but something inside me told me to be careful. Maybe it was the way he stood there, like he was waiting for something. The next few days were uneventful, and life returned to normal. But then, it happened again. It was around the same time, 2:30 a.m., when I finished work that night. I was walking to my car again, trying to shake off the fatigue. And once more, there he was. The same man, standing by the dumpster in the same still, unnatural way. His face was obscured by the shadows, but his presence sent a cold shiver down my spine. This time, though, I didn't immediately get in my car. I stood there, frozen, watching him. Something about the way he stood there, motionless, sent a jolt of fear through me. He wasn't just standing there for no reason. It felt like he was waiting for something, waiting for me. After a moment, he turned his head slightly toward me, and my breath caught in my throat. His face was pale, expressionless, and his eyes, they were dark, empty, like they saw nothing. I could feel my pulse pounding in my ears, and I couldn't move. I had to get out of there. Quickly. I bolted for my car, not looking back. I fumbled with the keys, my hands slick with sweat, and slammed the door shut once I was inside. My heart was racing as I sped away, but this time I didn't look back. I couldn't. I didn't want to know if he was still watching me. The next day, I couldn't shake the feeling of dread that had settled deep inside me. The thought of that man, his stillness, his cold stare, kept me up all night. But when I woke up, I tried to ignore it. I had work again that night, and life, as usual, had to go on. But as I pulled into the parking lot that evening, I saw something that made my blood run cold. There, right at the same dumpster, was a black duffel bag. It wasn't there the day before, and it was too close to where the man had stood. I felt the hair on the back of my neck stand up. My instinct was to walk away, to just ignore it, and go inside. But the thought that the man might have left it there made me uneasy. What was inside it? Why had he left it? I called the non-emergency number for the local police, and they sent someone to check it out. When the officer arrived, I watched from the safety of my store as he approached the bag carefully. A few minutes later, he turned and walked back toward me, shaking his head. "It's empty," he said, "but we'll have our team check the area." The officer didn't seem too concerned, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. That night, as I was locking up to leave, I decided to take a different route home. I didn't want to pass by the dumpster again, not after what had happened. But as I drove down a side street, I saw it. The same man, standing under the streetlight, not moving, not blinking. It was like he was waiting for me. My stomach twisted in knots. I didn't know what to do. Should I stop? Should I ask him what he wanted? I could see him clearer now, his thin, pale frame illuminated by the streetlight. His eyes were fixed on me, but I couldn't bring myself to stop the car. I couldn't get out. I wasn't sure what would happen if I did. I kept driving, my eyes glued to the road ahead, but I could feel his stare burning into me. When I turned onto my block, I saw the familiar figure in my rearview mirror, following me. He was still there, walking slowly, at the same pace I was driving. I raced to my house, my mind reeling. I ran inside, locked the door, and bolted the windows. But the thought of that man standing on my street corner, following me, kept me frozen in fear. I called the police, but by the time they arrived, the street was empty. Days passed, but every night after work, I'd see him, standing in the same spots, always watching. I started to question my sanity. Was I imagining this? Was he really there? Or was it just the exhaustion and stress of work playing tricks on me? But each time, his stare never wavered. It was always the same, cold, unblinking. One night, I took an entirely different route home, just to see if I could avoid him. But when I pulled into my driveway, my blood ran cold. There, in the corner of my yard, near my window, was the man, watching my house. He was standing in the same spot, like he had been waiting for me to get home. I didn't know how long he'd been there or what he wanted, but I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed my phone and quickly dialed the police. They arrived after what felt like hours, and they didn't find him anywhere around. But they did find something strange. Footprints leading up to my window, just outside the house. The man had been inside my yard. They tried to reassure me, but I knew in my gut that something was wrong. The officer mentioned they'd send someone out to check security footage, and that's when the real horror began. The security camera footage from outside my house showed something that made my blood run cold. The man had been watching me, not just from the outside, but from inside my own house. The footage showed him standing at my window, staring in at me, just hours before I called the police. The unsettling part? The footage had a timestamp, 2 weeks ago, and I hadn't noticed a thing. The question haunted me ever since. How long had he been watching me? How long had I been completely unaware? The man never came back after that night. The police said they never found him, and there was no trace of where he had gone. But the lingering fear, the constant thought of those empty eyes, stays with me every time I lock my door. Now, every night when I go to bed, I hear the softest sound, a tap, just barely audible, on my window. And I can't help but wonder, is he still out there? Watching? It was one of those nights, cold, windy, with a storm brewing on the horizon. I was working late as usual. The Uber app buzzed with its familiar hum, signaling that a new ride request had come through. It wasn't the busiest night, just me, the empty roads, and the relentless wind. The storm had already caused several delays, and many drivers had called it quits for the night. But I wasn't ready to go home yet. Extra rides meant extra cash, and I needed it. I clicked on the notification. The ride was a long one, a 35-minute drive from my current location. The passenger's drop-off point was even further away, about 20 minutes more, deep into the outskirts of town. I thought about it for a moment, looking out at the rain-soaked streets. No one else was around. It was too quiet, but the extra money pushed me to accept it. I tapped the screen and the map flashed, showing me the pickup location. I didn't recognize it at first. It was a stretch of road I hadn't traveled down in months. It wasn't exactly the best part of town. The streets were poorly lit, the kind of place you avoid at night. But my car was in good condition, and there was no reason to back out now. The rain started coming down harder as I drove toward the location. The windshield wipers moved furiously, but I still could barely see ahead. The trees lining the road swayed violently in the wind. The atmosphere was thick with tension, and my nerves were on edge. The sound of the rain and wind filling the silence of the car. It took me 35 minutes to get there, but it felt longer. The empty road stretched on forever, and the only light was the weak glow of my headlights illuminating the rain. When I finally reached the location, I found myself at the corner of two roads, both deserted. No streetlights, nothing. The area was mostly industrial, abandoned warehouses and some empty lots, with the occasional crumpled sign barely standing in the wind. I checked the app again. I had arrived at the pinpointed location. I sat in the car, waiting. No one was in sight. I checked my phone, a growing unease creeping over me. Who would order an Uber out here, especially in a storm like this? I glanced around again, but still nothing. No movement. I was about to text the passenger when I saw him. At first, it was just a shadow in the corner of my eye. A figure moving quickly through the rain, heading towards my car. He appeared out of nowhere, seemingly from the trees. I didn't even see him walk up. He was just there. The man opened the passenger door without a word and slid into the seat next to me. He was soaked to the bone, his clothes clinging to his body. His face was obscured by the rainwater dripping down from his hood. His eyes were dark, unblinking, fixed on something outside. There was a strange, cold energy about him. His presence felt off. I broke the silence. "You're my ride, right?" I asked, trying to mask the anxiety in my voice. He nodded slowly, still not saying a word, but I could hear the edge in his voice when he replied, "You know my name." That sent a chill down my spine. There was no way he could have known my name. Uber didn't show that kind of information to passengers, but he seemed certain. His voice was calm, too calm. I began driving, trying to shake the feeling that something was wrong, but the silence was unnerving. Every now and then, I'd glance in the rearview mirror and see his reflection. He wasn't looking at me, but I could feel his gaze. It made me nervous. I had to know why he was out here, in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of a storm. "Hey, so what are you doing out here?" I asked, trying to make conversation, my voice casual. He didn't respond at first. His eyes darted to the side. I caught him glancing at the map on my phone, where his destination was displayed. He finally spoke, his voice almost a whisper. "I'm just passing through." The answer didn't make sense. No one passes through here at this time of night, especially not in a storm. I tried again. "I mean, why are you out in the rain on a night like this?" He didn't respond, but his posture shifted. He was suddenly more rigid, tense, his hands clutching the seat. He wasn't just avoiding the question, he was shutting down. The unease grew stronger. I tried to keep my eyes on the road, but my mind was racing. Was he hiding something? Why did I feel like he was watching me? We drove for a while in silence, and then, suddenly, he spoke again. "Stop here," he said, his voice sharp. It took me off guard. "Wait, are you sure?" I asked. I was only a few miles away from his drop-off point. He repeated himself, louder this time. "Stop here!" I pulled over to the side of the road, my instincts screaming at me to get out of there. He was suddenly in my car. He threw open the door and began stepping out. But as he did, his eyes flicked to the phone on my dashboard. He looked at the screen for a split second, just long enough for me to realize what was going on. He was looking at the Uber app, seeing where I was going next. I felt a sudden flash of clarity. He wasn't supposed to be here. He wasn't just a passenger. Something about him felt off. I reached for my phone, hoping to cancel the ride, to erase the connection. Maybe that would make him realize that his information was still tied to the app. It wasn't much, but it was the only thing I could think to do. "Don't worry," I said, trying to stay calm. "I'll cancel the ride." But he hesitated. He turned back and glared at me, his eyes cold, unblinking. Then, without a word, he stepped out into the rain. His figure vanished into the night as quickly as he had appeared. I sat in the car, frozen for a moment. My heart was pounding, and I had no idea what had just happened. I quickly drove away, trying to shake the feeling of unease. The next few days were a blur. I had almost forgotten about the strange encounter when I received a call from the police. Someone had gone missing. They had been last seen near the location where I had picked up the man. I told them everything I could remember. The details were fuzzy, but the man's description matched the one they had gotten. They asked if I had any more information, but I had nothing to offer. It wasn't until later that I realized the man had known something was wrong. Maybe he had been following someone. Maybe I was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. The authorities never found him. No trace of him, no explanation. Just the strange feeling that I had narrowly escaped something far darker than I realized. And every time the rain falls now, I can't help but remember that ride. Was I just an unlucky driver? Or had I been part of something far worse than I'll ever understand?